Hey guys, Dov here, back with another unit highlight. Today, taking a look at Greatswords. Quick reminder, guys, if you like the series, like the replays, go ahead and give the video a like. Really helps out the channel. Without further ado, Greatswords. So we've got one unit here. This is actually Noldor, a patron of mine, aka Anti-Mage. This is from his patron training session. So for those of you guys who don't know, on my Patreon, you can get a certain tier, which gets you, free. I guess not free, they're included. Costs money, but you get training lessons with me, more or less. So the way that Noldor likes to do his training lessons, and I kind of let my patrons dictate how they want to do it, he likes to jump in quick battles, and I'll kind of watch him on Discord and kind of coach him as he's playing quick battles. So I wanted to sort of talk through the process of this build. There's only one greatsword here, so it might seem like an odd focus, but it is very important to this build. And in just a lot of builds recently in general, I've been favoring bringing 1 to 2 anti-infantry units, like one elite choice amongst all this chaff of anti-infantry to help. And to help them as well. Greatswords, probably stealthy, one of the best greatsword type units in the game, believe it or not, because of Volkmar and the prayer buffs. These guys can punch way above their weight class. Also got some Tattersouls here and the Sigmar Sons for a couple of unbreakable guys. War wagons here. They are decent guns that can be mobile and are relatively tanky, much easier to protect than something like handgunners. We've also got Amber Wizard here. Obviously, more terror is going to be good against the Greenskins. Likewise, this Empire Captain here on foot might seem like a bit of an odd choice, but I actually really like him. This hold the line in an area of effect, especially as that hits these greatswords and flagellants, increasing their melee defense. Both of these units kind of lack that, so some really nice synergy there as well. One unit of Demigraph Knights for some elite armor piercing, a couple of Empire Knights for additional mobility, and as for this Greenskins build, he's up against Grimgor, leading the way, and he's got a Night Goblin Shaman here, a couple of Boar Chariots out on the flank, Crimson Killas with a couple of Orc Biggins here, along with some more Orc Biggins, and a little ambush of some Night Goblin Archers currently hidden. They're going to start shooting at the Flagellants, Tattersouls. I think the Doomdiver's been shooting at them. We've also got some Wolf Riders sweeping up and around the flank there, so yeah, interesting builds. The Greatswords here potentially have their work cut out for them. With the prayer buffs and with the right engagement, they can trade really well with all of these Black Orcs and such in this front line. But as it is right now, the wagons pull up, start to do a bit of damage. These archers pouring in fire to the spearmen, they're definitely going to die to those biggins, but that's fine. Worthy sacrifice. Meanwhile, over here, the Empire Knights sweep up and around and engage the Boar Chariots. Boar Chariots actually, with support on the countercharge for the Empire Knights, might beat them. But as it is right now, this type of a grind situation, the Empire Knights will definitely win out. But Volkmar in the front line here, kind of hitting and running, cutting and moving. He is within range of Grimgor, so he's got to be careful. Grimgor will dismantle this Sigmar wagon very quickly. Not to mention all the Biggins and stuff, but the Biggins have taken some pretty good damage so far. War wagons in a safe position, just able to fire. And again, essentially using as mobile handgunners here. Over here, they might get crumped a little bit. But Greatswords now moving into a position to engage. Over here, Sigmar Sons got rear charged by those Wolf Riders. That's just fine. Crimson Killas also kind of still just defending in the back line. But yeah, I move away for a few seconds, and you see how much Volkmar's just got absolutely wrecked by Grimgor. So he's going to pull away from that front line engagement there, get on out of dodge. Of course, Volkmar being an unbreakable boss is not going to go down there. So Feral Manticore gets summoned up to go after, I think, probably the Boar Chariots. Not 100% sure, but nice Curse of the Bad Moon. Bit of a fun one, and the misclick on the banishment, no big deal. Happens to the best of us. But yeah, I want to highlight these Greatswords as they come in here. They've got one Chevron to start. They're going to get not the best engagement here against the Black Orcs, but with this Manticore now supporting, and you see how these Demigraph Knights are also charging in. Volkmar the Grim, he does have Your Next active, but he drops the buffs because he's in range regardless. And oh, that nice column of Demis slamming home the charge. Man, Empire's so cool. And of course, the Greatswords, with all this support, are just trading beautifully here. Like a quarter of the way up to a Chevron already. The Waz being popped on the Greenskins side, but there are some good situations here. These Empire Knights getting caught by Biggins, they're getting torn up in a big hurry. And the chariots are actually ending up tying the Empire Knights down for quite a long time. Over here, like, this War Wagon's now kind of getting chased off by Biggins. And Wolf Riders, the Wolf Riders continuing to catch them up while the Biggins deal damage. But, yeah, look at this front line, man. These Greatswords are basically still completely healthy. I mean, granted, they have a lot of supporting resources here. But they are also chopping up Grimgor, and that anti-infantry armor piercing coming in very handy here. Not only are they chopping him up, but the War Wagon's also firing in there as well. And Empire Captain fighting with the Spearman over here. His splash attacks actually make him decent at supporting a frontline engagement like this. Right now he's just staring down. Oh, kicks a Black Orc in the face. That's pretty impressive. Nice rear charge from these Demigryph Knights here, and if we check in on the Greatswords, they're already up to a chevron just about, mostly from dealing damage to Grimgor here, which is something you might not expect. You know, Grimgor is a very strong combat character, but when he gets surrounded by an anti-infantry AP unit like this, it's really not a great day for him. Crimson Killers getting torn apart by angry Demis now as well, and that should be a quick victory for the Greenskins. And yeah, maybe not the most high level of play. It is a ladder game, I suppose. I don't actually play ladder too much myself anymore, but I thought it would be fun for you guys to take a look. And just in general, kind of, normally, like, I don't go through and really explain the thought process behind my build, so I thought you guys would kind of like to know that up front, right? Like, a few things. Obviously, Greenskins are weak to terror, so I already kind of talked about that. The Manticore summons plus Volkmar is very strong. Volkmar's supporting buffs means that Greatswords, who would normally lose pretty badly to Black Orcs, and even to, I don't know, they probably might lose to Biggins as well. Kind of depends 50-50, I think, and on the charge and such. But, I mean, just in general, they have a hard time trading well with Greenskins infantry, unless they have the buffs, but Volkmar coming in on his wagon here, just an absolute champ. Gets a massive terror route. The buffs on the Greatswords, they're almost completely healthy still. Still 70 unit models, XP chevron. Demis have also got an XP chevron here. And yeah, it's kind of one or two as a surprise pick, especially if you've got Volkmar, because they can trade so well with him. But it's something that people don't expect the Empire to have decent, you know, armored infantry. Slate troops are very good for their cost, but they are just light infantry at the end of the day, right? They're not heavy armor. They don't have you know, offensive armor piercing power like Greatswords do, but Greatswords, man, they can be pretty surprising. A few more Biggins hanging on here as they fight these Demigryph Knights. These Goblin Archers have managed to keep themselves protected the whole time. It's pretty impressive, honestly, but they can't stand up this giant Empire horde here that remains. And I will say, part of the reason that Greatswords are so good is because of the prayer buffs, certainly. Prayer buffs do carry them a good amount. Without them, they would definitely be a lot less cost-effective. But as it is, they can trade well with a lot of factions, and they're a good stealth pick if you think your opponent might have any elite infantry, or just infantry in general. Like I mentioned, with a lot of matchups right now, I've been favoring, like, Dark Elves. I'll often bring Blades of the Blood Queen. I mean, obviously, Greenskins, you bring great weapons all the time, but or even if not Blades of the Blood Queen, just one kind of Executioner or something, some kind of elite Greatsword choice. One or two of them can be enough. And here, only 17 kills on them, not the highest kill total in the world, but a lot of damage being done to high-value targets, whether that be Grimgor, some good HP damage on these Black Orcs, Crimson Killers as well. It was a good combined arms victory for the Empire, though. I mean, Empire Knights got some good work done. 56 kills for the Demis and an XP chevron there. Wagons, actually, interestingly enough, did not end up getting a chevron, but 9 kills also for the Empire Captain. Again, that melee defense buff's pretty essential here. Interesting build for the Greenskins. I think the Orc Boar Chariots obviously ended up being a little bit of a mistake here. I like one Orc Boar Chariot, and you need some other supporting cavalry as well, so that the Empire Knights have something else to go after other than the chariot. But it's an interesting build. Just kind of finishing up with Greatswords here in comparison to other Greatsword type units. They are quite a bit cheaper than the Elven Greatswords, which is an advantage. And obviously with the prayer buffs, they can still punch way above what they cost. 900 points though. Their combat stats 32 and 30 actually are slightly worse than a regular swordsman, right, for twice the cost. But really, the armor and the leadership is what comes into play here, as well as that weapon strength. Anti-infantry is significant. Plus 10 bonus versus infantry is definitely something. Comparing them to Swordmasters is pretty interesting. They've got 500 more HP and way more unit models. They do not deflect shots, but then Swordmasters are just better in basically every other way. So, not quite armor, but that's even without martial prowess. It's pretty interesting, honestly. Swordmasters definitely, you would think, hit a lot harder, but that plus 14 melee attack is actually, you know, once you factor in the prayer buffs of the Hammer of Sigmar, is much less, right? So, Greatswords potentially can even hit a little bit harder, or more consistently, rather. Same story, basically, with Executioners. I mean, 300 points more expensive. You'd better expect them to be just better across the board. These guys have Murderous Mastery, though, which is arguably as strong, if not stronger in certain circumstances, than the prayer buffs, given that it's a passive thing. I mean, you can't choose when to use it, but it will last a very long time. So there's kind of some give and take there, but it's interesting. There's not actually that many Greatsword units in the game, and Greatswords are functionally a little bit different from general great weapons like axes and hammers and such. We'll look at that in just a minute. Foot Squires are sort of on the other end, right, where they're quite a bit cheaper than Greatswords and just worse overall. That plus 10 melee defense in particular, and the extra HP and armor, means that Greatswords are a lot tankier than Foot Squires. Foot Squires are cheaper, but they ended up being even just worse just in every way. Foot Squires are probably one of the worst units in the game. If I'm being honest, the lack of buffs for them is really a big problem, whereas the Greatswords, on the other hand, have access to some of the best buffs in the game. So there's that. Greatswords, of course, benefiting on just being on the Empire roster of that beautiful combined arms. There's often other more high-value armored targets. They can kind of slip under the radar in that way as well. But just in general, I mean, Greatswords versus, like, great weapons. Obviously, axes and other great weapons tend to do just more damage overall. The Chaos Warrior is an interesting one, because these guys are not that far off in terms of cost. Greatsword has slightly worse stats, but that anti-infantry bonus definitely makes up for it in a head-to-head engagement. They'll be less good against just general targets, but again, the prayer buffs means that Greatswords can actually punch something like a Chaos Warrior very, very hard, or even a Chosen, to be honest, with their 60 melee defense. I mean, we math this out here. You go up to 42 with the anti-infantry, plus an extra 26 from, or is it 24 from the Hammer of Sigmar? Right, so you're up plus above that 60 melee attack, yeah, 24. So, I mean, you're getting like 40% chance to hit, give or take, which is pretty good, all things considered, considering how tanky those Chosen are. So, definitely something to consider. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching this one. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.